Once you get your black belt, it's time. The slight caveat to that is you should be training.
There's a lot of shoulds in there, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I received, my black belt from Vinny Magalhaes, mid 200s. He's flexible as hell, super strong. His jiu-jitsu's ridiculous. Feel like you absolutely suck at jiu-jitsu when you roll with him.
Most people come to you because it's you. Yes, there's a quality level in training for sure, but most people just like who you are as a person. You build that relationship over time.
The injuries you get, the frustration, the joy when you do things really well, all that kind of like emotional up and down and ebb and flow that you get. You have to be in the right environment to support that.
Yeah.
And culture's it's just one of those intangibles that you have to build, and it's not something you build in a day, a week, a month. It really starts from the top down, and you really have to have someone who emphasizes leadership. Those leadership qualities build culture.
Dude, we were just talking about, before we started recording, about how, okay, so you're a one-stripe black belt.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not going to name any names, but then I came across, like someone with, let's just say he had, 3 or 4 stripes, let's just say, okay. And then, but he never trained. And from my understanding, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, is that once you get to black belt, it's just time at that point.
Yeah, once you get your black belt, it's time. But the way that I've come up, the way I've learned, is that the slight caveat to that is you should be training, And
you said should be, though.
You should be. And I believe that. I think to continue on and progress and be recognized for, what you would call progression, you should be active.
There's a lot of shoulds in there, though. Yeah, you know what I mean?
There's absolutely should. And I say that because I'm not trying to bash anyone for what they've accomplished or why they haven't trained, because, maybe they haven't trained because they had a catastrophic injury. They've put a lot into the sport. They've, bettered themselves. They've accomplished a lot. They pass that knowledge on to others. Yep. But also, so maybe they haven't trained because of some sort of extenuating circumstance. Yep. But the flip side to that is if, let's say, you just get your black belt one day and then stop training a week later and expect 3 years from then, and then you haven't trained at all just because you haven't felt like it, without some sort of extenuating circumstance, and then show up and get your stripe from your instructor, or I don't know, be even more brazen and just put it on yourself, just because 3 years later, you're supposed to be a first degree, and then 3 years after that, get your second degree, and so on and so forth. It's just, what'd be the difference of saying like, okay, you get your license at 16, let's say at 18, you move somewhere, you don't have a car, you haven't driven for 5 years, and then you come back and say, oh, I have 7 years of driving experience. What's the difference at that point?
Yeah, you're right. The experience. It's just, that's what I was witnessing, right? And again, like we were talking about, it was just like the guy was just kind of walking around, and then I probably for the past year I was there, he just wasn't. And then again, we were talking before this podcast, he got another stripe. He was due for it. And I'm like, I haven't seen that guy train the whole time I've been here. And I was going 4 or 5 days a week. Sure. So that's why I just had this thought of who determines that? What's the system behind that? Is it you have someone that's has more stripes than you, and then they give it to you? That's still an instructor.
Yeah, correct. Just to award someone a black belt, you have to be a 2-stripe black belt for that.
Okay.
For that then subsequential black belt to be recognized. So,
and what organization or federation?
International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, IBJJF, but it's kind of universally kind of recognized that way. So for everyone that's competing at black belt or registered as a black belt, with that organization, probably the most widely recognized organization, in the jiu-jitsu community. There's others that are, very well recognized as well. But everyone who has a black belt or competing that you see there at one of their tournaments receive their black belt from someone who's a 2-stripe or higher.
Interesting. And you can receive your stripes if you switch instructors.
Sure. And,
yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm seeing
like
that. I know people who've done exactly that. You know, they got their black belt from somebody, and then they now have a gym, and it's an affiliation with, you know, another instructor. And now I saw someone get their second stripe from that instructor. And, you know, that the person receiving that second stripe, yeah, they have their time in their belt. They're still training. They're still working hard. You know, they're just, they're kind of now striped and getting their degrees under a different lineage, you know? And if that's their prerogative to do that, you know, if that makes sense for their situation, yeah, so be it.
Yeah.
You know, but I received, you know, my black belt from Vinny Magalhaes, you know, I received my first stripe from Vinny Magalhaes, you know, and I don't have the intent to move on or do other things or, you know, be belted under someone else. And, you know, I always consider him my instructor. You know, he's the person who put the black belt on
Even
me.
till now.
Even till now.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I know that, and quite a guy, by the way. You know, I did a podcast with him at his gym. He was very welcoming. And man, that guy is an animal with all his history and all that. I'm like, you know.
Yeah, he's what, about 6'3". He's, you know, mid 200s. He's flexible as hell. Super strong. His jiu-jitsu's ridiculous. It's not fair. It's just not fair. You just, you know, it's, you just feel like you absolutely suck at jiu-jitsu when you roll with them.
Oh, there's levels. That's when levels come in. Yeah. And part of that, I mean, yes, we could talk like predispositions and like genetics, you know, and all that, which he clearly has. I mean, he's built like a tank almost, but it's also, when I was talking to him, it's his focus. I wrote a blog about it, and that's one thing that stuck out of all his history and his resume. That's one thing that stuck out to me. I'm like, what do you think it is that makes you such a great competitor, right? Because I think that's what I know him for after doing research on him. And he said, oh, it's just like focus in and just all focus. That's, you live and breathe it. That's pretty much what he was saying. What's going on, guys? If you're enjoying this podcast, please don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. Only if you're getting value out of it on YouTube, and also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to leave a rating and follow. And also, I also write a blog newsletter from what I learned from my incredible guests that I have on. So sign up for the email list and get updates on the podcast. Thank you for your love and support. Now back to the show.
He's a phenom, and he accomplished a lot. You know, he's won world titles at all of his different color belts. You know,
MMA too. Yeah.
You know, his MMA accomplishments, you know, and he's very well recognized, and really funny guy too.
Oh yeah, he's really funny. Yeah. He's a character. Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I saw that picture of you on Instagram when you visited Oasis.
No, of course.
Yeah. So even if you're going to like different gyms, right? He's the one that, going back before we move on, he's the one that dictates. Since you're under his lineage, even though you guys are going to different gyms, he's the one that's going to give you a stripe.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
like,
and that's exactly, you know, he's not just my instructor, he's my friend.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm so happy for him opening, you know, his gym, you know, except I would train there more, you know, but it's opposite direction of like where I'm usually heading. You know, and I love going up there to visit him, and his gym's absolutely beautiful. It's super clean. It's great. It's, you know, he's building up a team again.
I call it the, what's that really high class gym? You know what I mean?
Which one?
It's like a club. It's a country club almost.
Yeah.
And they charge like $260, $300 a month. Yeah. Do you remember? It's like at one's in Summerlin and it's like at, shit, man.
No, you're talking about like Lifetime Athletic?
There you go. Yeah. Lifetime. I call it, when I was there, I call it the lifetime of like jiu-jitsu.
No, I would say.
Right? Oasis?
No, it's nice. Like the weight area is super clean. All that. He's going to like build in like a coffee bar up there. You know,
a sidebar. Great.
Yeah. But you know, one thing, it's like, you know, I have my loyalty with Vinny, and, you know, a lot of respect, and a lot of my really good friends, you know, we all trained together, with Vinny for a long time. But right now it's like, especially I teach and, teaching Extreme Couture, and it's like, I'm teaching people and watching them progress, which is exciting for me, and it's really cool to see people grow and, find out they can do things they didn't think they were able to do, and there's no way I could leave them behind. And yeah, I live in Summerlin. Getting Extreme Couture takes me about 15 minutes.
I mean, you got the 215.
Yeah, sure. No, it's 215. It's like right by my house.
right.
But getting up to Vinny's might take me an extra 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, Sky Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah, no, up there, it's also just easy drive on the 215. But there's students that come to my class that, come from Henderson, and enjoy their company, enjoy them being in class. And I wouldn't want to leave that situation, because I have a lot of respect for them too.
Absolutely. And at times it's just the relationship. I mean, not at times. I mean, it's the relationship that you build over time and the investments that you make, right?
Absolutely.
Emotional investments. That's an investment. And, what I often say, because I did teach Muay Thai in this place called San Diego, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in San Diego. And what I've come to find out after teaching, for about a few years over there, is that most people, and I don't know if this is universal, but most people come to you because it's you. It's not, yes, there's a quality level in training for sure, but most people just like who you are as a person. You build that relationship over time.
And to support that, we have people come and go, especially this town tends to be a little bit more transient than most, in my opinion. And we have people that, I might have come to my class for a couple of years, or they've been at the gym for a while and they're like, oh, I'm moving to fill in the blank city, where should I go train? And I've gotten that question about, different places, and I might just Google, be like, hey, who's in that area? Who are some reputable people? And I say, do you know what? These gyms should be good, but you should go check them all out. Because you have to figure out what fits, what the vibe is at each of those.
Absolutely.
Because, going through the process of like training every day, and, just fighting your friends, and going through that, and the injuries you get, the frustration, the joy when you do things really well, all that kind of like emotional up and down and ebb and flow that you get. You have to be in the right environment to support that.
Yeah.
It's easy to have that support or feel good about it when it's like everything's on the up and up, and because that's easy.
Yeah.
When you're at your lowest or you feel like you're regressing, with it, with the amount of progress that you're making, you feel like you're going backwards or getting worse, or, oh, you have an injury, or you're just in that mentally kind of messes you up a little bit, and you have all those things. Are you in the right place to support you, through that, so it's not just about the progress. It's about, hey, how are you going to get through the tough parts?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're saying. What's the boundaries on that? Meaning, how does someone going to a gym determine if it's the actual coaches, if it's the environment, because it takes two to tango, right? Is it a lot of people will blame, say their coaches for their regression, like you said. A lot of people will blame themselves, as they should. Like they got to keep accountable.
Sure.
But then can you give me an example of that happening, how you determine, is it just a feeling?
Yeah, it's some of it is like, okay, with the gym, though, like any gym or any business or at a house or whatever, it has all those tangible qualities, like, okay, let's say we're talking about a gym. Oh, is it clean? Is there adequate mat space for the amount of people? Is it easy to get to? Is it easy to park there? Did you not get ringworm 15 times in a row?
Oh, geez.
No, just like,
yeah, we went there.
No, I'm just saying. Like,
I know.
If you like to shower before you go to work or whatever, or after training? Are there showers there, and are they adequate? Do they suffice what, all those things? You have all those tangible things. Are the classes at the right time? Classes the right length at time? Are there, good enough training partners, or is it just a bunch of brand new people that, I don't know, it's not as fun, or you don't feel like you're being challenged enough?
Yes. Or what kind of programs they have, right?
Sure,
if it's like a structured white belt kind of program, that's a lot too.
Sure, and you need that all the same, So it really kind of like what fits your exact situation, and do you have those tangibles there? And then it's the intangibles that, like, hey, do you like the way that the instructor or the front desk staff or whoever else or the gym manager, if it's that kind of operation, or do you like the way that they speak to you? Do you like the way that you see them speak to other people? Do you feel welcome there? How do they treat new people when they get there? Because going to any gym, like if you're going to a gym or you're dropping in for an open mat at a city that you're visiting, it's like, there's a lot of those like intangibles.
Yes.
And you kind of pick that up right away, or be like, like they're really cool there. I really like that place. Sure. Every time I come to town for work or what have you, I want to stop in there because, do you know what? Like, they're really nice, and I got some good rounds in, and, it was a lot of fun. Or you go in there, you get some tough rounds, but they're trying to take your head off, and they're not making eye contact with you. They're giving you bad vibes, and, and you're like, you know what? I don't need to spend my happy time going to a place where I'm going to have to kind of, feel defensive.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. I hope that you're getting a lot of value out of it. Just a quick announcement. I started a YouTube and Patreon membership for you Speakeasy Squad listeners out there. So for YouTube, just click down below to join. And also for Patreon, I'll post a link down below so that you can join for you Spotify and Apple podcast listeners out there. What you get is behind the scene footage and early access to podcasts, some pictures, photos, and whatever behind the scenes shoots that we do. So click the links down below, and all the proceeds, actually all of it, goes into this podcast. So to enhance productions, to get bigger guests on, all of it. So thank you for your love and support. And now back to the show. Yeah, there's so many factors, like you said, and those were a lot of factors. But then, we obviously see things subjectively, right? It could be the smallest things. Oh, it could be even just the first person you meet on how he interacts with you. It's like, oh man, I really like Jill or Jimmy, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to like interact with them again. That can really determine everything. And like you said, I think, again, we both come from like the restaurant, food and beverage, I should say, industry. And I think that's a part of it, man. Like even just jiu-jitsu as a business, like customer service, man. If your demeanor and your mannerisms are there, like, and it vibrates throughout the culture, and that's another one, a culture, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes it comes from top bottom.
And you beat me to it, because I was going to emphasize culture also.
Hey, go ahead, man. Let's hear it. Yeah, let's go.
Culture is it's just one of those intangibles that you have to build, and it's not something you build in a day, a week, a month. It's a long-term process, and it really starts from the top down, and you really have to have someone who emphasizes leadership.
Yes.
And those leadership qualities build culture. Lack of leadership kind of lets culture kind of go awry. And then basically it can go in any kind of direction. And, the tendency doesn't always turn out well.
What makes a good culture, you think?
That's a great question. Good culture, in my opinion, is, like I said, you're putting together, a program, and you have people coming in, and this is kind of like very multifaceted. You have people coming in for all sorts of different reasons. You have someone coming in that, they just want to get in shape. and they want to do stuff that's not running on a treadmill and, picking up and putting down, weighted objects. You have people that want to come in there because, eventually they want to compete or, in some sort of, whether it be jiu-jitsu or MMA or some other kind of, combat, situation. You have people that do it to supplement their job skill and some sort of law enforcement security, something like that, where they're kind of bound to get in some sort of, altercation. They just want to supplement, just what they can use in a real world situation, and, kind of like everything in between, so what's going to be a welcoming situation for all the above, because if you're just there and you're like, oh no, we only build world champions. And let's say that the instructor is great. They're, really good at what they do. They're multiple time world champion. They know jiu-jitsu very well. They've extremely talented. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to a good culture for the other parts of it. If maybe they are building world champion. Maybe they're just like, yeah, we're training hard every day. This is what practice is. You're going to train a couple times a day, and and you're going to go to these tournaments and you're going to win. And you're going to be in the right mindset for yourself, and you're going to have all that, and that's great. But how does that work for the people that are just trying to get in shape? How does that work for you can call them hobbyists, or it's just the
practitioners.
Person. Yeah, practitioners.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's for the people that don't necessarily have like the ambition to compete, for whatever reason, or you have someone who works in some sort of law enforcement, capacity, that just wants to do it because, they want to just be able to handle some person on the job or exude the confidence on their job, so they don't have to use, physical force, so, is that going to be the right vibe for them? Is that going to be the right culture for them? Not necessarily, so it's about, that culture aspect. It's like, how do you build that? How do you do it? You have to figure out what you want, in a leadership role, like what kind of culture that you want to build and how you keep reinforcing that.
Yeah. If something was that specific, right? Like when you say we build world champions, I mean, that's their prerogative, right? Like it's almost like, okay, this is only strictly for like people that want to compete, at a high level. But rarely do you know what I mean? I can't think of one gym that markets it that way. I know it's like, not like, oh yeah, here's a sign, we only take competitors. You got to go in there and kind of feel it out. But so one of my examples would be in San Diego. Like I was going to this place called Carlsbad Kickboxing Club, right? And then there's this girl that would drive all the way from like the south of San Diego all the way to the north, which is like an hour drive, which is crazy, 45 minutes just to go to that gym. The reason why she says she goes to that gym is because of the culture, like we were talking about. And then when she went to said other gym, they said, oh, they didn't really pay attention to like the practitioners. They just focused heavy on the competition, even though they welcomed the, practitioners. So I guess that would be an example of like, you got to go in there, fill it out, because a lot of people won't just say, yeah, competitors only like on their like logo or something, right?
Sure. And, it takes you a minute to figure that out, so like going back to like what I was saying about someone, moving somewhere else or going to visit somewhere, they're like, oh, what gym should I check out? It's what's going to fit your vibe, the best. Check them all out, check out, these are probably the ones given the like what their lineage is or, who they are or, some other factors like, hey, these will probably be, will be good ones, but, go check it out. See if it fits for you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go through a lot of pain, a lot of struggles,
dude.
a lot of trials.
It's a long-term thing, dude.
No, it's a long game.
Yeah, it's a long game. Yeah.
Is that where you want to spend a lot of your free time?
That's true.
Is that where you want to be?
Does it excite you to go there every morning?
It does.
Would you say? Right. You know what I mean?
Does.
Like that's a big factor of it. But going back to the leadership before, because we're talking about like two different things now almost, like how, it's kind of my fault because I brought up marketing, but so when I had John Wood on there, I think it was fascinating because it was more of a business masterclass of like how to run a gym, right? And how you get successful at running a gym. And what he was saying was that he needed to have like the people in place. It's mostly the people that you work under. Now, of course, that's top to bottom. He's the one making those decisions, right? So he said that when he got the right people in place, probably talking about like integrity and, someone that actually knows how to run it, like say Jerry, right?
Sure.
And Jerry's a big factor of it. Now he owns a piece of it because like the way he teaches, the way he's personable and all that.
Jerry's a great guy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I'm still there, to be honest with you. In the jiu-jitsu program, I have a lot of fun, with their jokes and how they crack, you know what I mean? It's like one of those new age jokes. And he's really come a long way when it's come to coaching. At first, you could really see his development when he came from Cobra Kai. And then John was like, oh yeah, we could do this. And then at first, I'm sure he'd tell you the same thing. It was a bit of like a learning curve, like anything else. But after that, there's like about 100 people showing up at night classes, which I don't go to because, I'm old and I'm a morning person. But yeah, it was just going back to my point. It was just a solid thing to hear, right? It's like, oh, okay. So you put the pieces in place and then it's like a puzzle. It just doesn't come from John saying, yeah, do this, do this, do this, do this. You're almost like the CEO now. You pretty much are. And then there's an umbrella of like, hey, Jerry, this is kind of like, an idea of it. And then Jerry will run that, right? In his own way. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking like,
it's a team environment, and the competition that people see, out there with, whether it be at a UFC level, at a very high level, or, in a jiu-jitsu tournament, whether it be, one of the federation tournaments, say ADCC, or even a small local tournament, you see one individual out there, but that one individual doesn't train on their own. They might decide personally that they're going to show up every day, or show up as often as they can and have an open mind and learn about it. But it's a team that helps develop them. And even when we have belt promotions, someone got a belt at the last promotion, 6 months earlier,
Okay.
I still strongly encourage them to show up.
Okay. Wait, can you go over that? So he got his belt 6 months earlier than he should have?
Sure.
Is that what?
No. He got his belt, at the last promotion. So 6 months before.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood.
No,
Okay.
of course.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I'm still going to encourage that individual to show up, to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for the people that are being recognized and being promoted, because do you know what? That person helped get them there.
Yes.
And when they get promoted, it's the other people around them that help get them there. Not just themselves, but it's a group collaborative effort, even on, down to the lowest level, belt that's in the room, they're still doing their part, and others are doing their part for them.
Yeah.
When you get up into the coaching aspect, or kind of like, the example you gave of like, John Wood giving Jerry, the reins of like this
is your program now, right?
Yeah, it's your program. Make it work, and, Jerry is going to do what he's going to do to get there. And no different than Jerry or myself, it's kind of like when I first started coaching, it's a learning process for me too.
When did you start coaching, just for reference?
I started coaching, about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And, but it's also about, hey, how do I give out that information? How can because I can't just do it one way, because everyone learns a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So how can I say it or rephrase it or show it in a different way? Or, how can I understand when the information is not being received? And how do I address that? And it's not that, that student didn't understand, because it's easy to say, they just didn't get it.
That'd make you a shitty instructor.
Well, yeah, no. It's what, because it's either one way or like you guys don't get it,
It's like, fuck this guy, he ain't getting shit.
Good luck.
Good luck. No, you don't belong to be here.
No, because there's a lot of things that like, for as long as I've trained, or it's called training because we're trained to do things a certain way, So if something, you're in a high stress situation, whether it be a tournament where your adrenaline's going, or equally so in like a real world situation, in a parking lot, you're on autopilot. You know, you're going to do exactly what you're trained to do.
Oh yeah.
You know, and because there's times when I watch film at like, you know, something where I was competing and you remember the match a certain way and then you watch the film and you're like, oh, I didn't remember doing that. And you did something else that was like, oh, that was cool. You know, like I don't even remember doing that.
It's like your subconscious taking over.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and so if let's say I demonstrate certain move and it really quickly, I learned, be like, okay, questions. And like, and there'd be something very secondary, be like, well, why are you grabbing the sleeve? You know, and that was kind of away from like kind of the meat and potatoes of, you know, the move I was showing. And I didn't even think about it. And I was like, oh, and you kind of like sit there and pause, be like, oh, because when I do this, they're going to try to escape and roll to turtle. This prevents them from going to turtle, you know, and you were kind of thinking to move ahead, you know, or kind of thinking about what's next, why you're grabbing that sleeve, but you did it without even thinking about it. So you first become better at kind of articulating, you know, like that information or some of the details, and, you know, kind of might seem like a minor detail, but you're just get better at articulating why.
Yes.
And then sometimes you show a move, you think you've explained it, you think you sufficed all, you know, the part that I mentioned just a second ago. And then everyone breaks out into groups of two, they're practicing the move on each other. And then you correct the first group. You're like, no, you got to grab that sleeve, you know, because it prevents them from going to turtle. Then you go to the next group. You're like, wait, no, you got to grab that sleeve, prevents them from going to turtle. And then you pause, and then you look around the room, and then you see the next group, and then the other groups that you haven't touched yet as you're going around, you know, and you're like, oh, they're all missing that. Okay, guys, that's on me. Bring it back in. You know, I missed this detail. My bad.
Let's regroup.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very, very interesting. I mean, yeah, I think, you know, relating to that, what you said, well, what I got from that was, you know, you kind of dumb it down a little bit, because I think this was with anything, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, with communication, is that you have to break things down to like the basic principles where a third grader could understand it.
Sure. It depends on who's in the room.
Okay.
You know, and there might be days when it's, I plan on showing something or progressing, you know, like through a series of movements. And then it might be a bunch of, you know, newer people in the room, you know, and we might be just missing some key things building up to the next part, and the part after. And it's only going to get to parts 1 and 2.
Yes.
You know, and because I want them to do it correctly. You know, it's not there to kind of satisfy my ego saying like, okay, we need to get through all the way to part 4.
Because my curriculum says so.
Yeah. If they're only getting to part 1 and 2, and we spent the time getting to part 2 and making sure that they're doing that correctly, you know what? There's no point in showing 3 and 4. You know? But let's say there's a room of, you know, more advanced people in the room, and we get 1 and 2 is pretty easy. Then we get to more details on parts 3 and 4, you know, and we really get all the way through. Great.
Yes.
But there's other times, and sometimes they, you know, depending on what's going on or collectively amongst the class, like sometimes there's some better people in the room, and we're still not getting through parts 1 and 2. You know, maybe we get to part 3, you know, and because but you just have to read the situation, you know, and go with it, you know, because there's no point in kind of pushing people along in the situation if they're not truly absorbing it.
Yeah, sure.
You know, because now you're just doing it for yourself.
Yeah, it's more of an ego-driven kind of thing. Yeah, you know what's interesting, and it's hard for me to say. I mean, yeah, I know I've been a coach once, but it's kind of hard to manage that, no? Because like you said, you have a lot of high-level people there, and then some would be beginners. And then it's kind of like doing a dance a little bit. You have to explain things. Like you said, you got to read the room, and you got to explain things maybe universally.
Sure. No. And sometimes you also have to make sure that the right people are paired up with the right people.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I mean, this happened even recently, but that's the first time it's happened. Okay. We get, you know, a couple like brand new people, like fresh off the street.
Fresh off the street, man. The ones that got in the street fights.
Yeah. No, not even that.
I know. I'm just playing. It's like, have you done Muay Thai before? Jiu-Jitsu? It's like in the streets.
Yeah.
What are those? Okay.
Undefeated in the streets.
Undefeated in the streets, baby.
So, but yeah, and then maybe they start talking in the beginning of class. They both have anxiety about being there because, they're the new guys
Social
or whatever. They bond over that kind of, commonality that they have, with each other.
Yeah, are you new?
And then we're going to break up into groups, and then it's like, oh, those two fresh off the street guys, drilling together, and it's the blind leading the blind, and they're not getting anything out of that.
Yeah.
So, and it's nice to have a culture at a gym to where, without me having to say hey, let's break these two guys up, and put one with that person who's been training, with me for quite a while, or this other person who's been training jiu-jitsu for even longer than that person, and, it's really cool to see parts of culture to where, that just happens, where, some people have been there, they already know what's going on without us having to talk about it amongst ourselves, and they'll just be like, hey, new guy one, come over here. The other new guy, go with him or go with her.
Yeah, right. What do you think about? So that's funny. Since we're talking about, matching people up, right? And then you got one guy that can lead, right? He's whatever, a higher belt or been doing it for a while. Then he's training the guy from the streets. But then what do you think about have you ever ran into the situation where say a blue belt or something, coaches a little bit too much and that's all he's doing?
No,
it's one of those things where it's like, wait, man, you got to do this, you got to do this. Because look, I've had my stint in that too.
Oh yeah.
Right? Where I thought since I was progressing and getting competent, I'd be like, no, hold on, do this. But then as you mature, you're just kind of like, okay, I sound like an idiot.
It kind of goes back to the whole thing, the progression, in jiu-jitsu itself is slow. It takes a long time to kind of earn a belt, earn a stripe, earn a belt, and so on and so forth. It takes a while. Your effectiveness, in that martial art, being effective in a kind of real situation with people that are just kind of looking for street fights and stuff like that, and provoking and things like that, you're going to be very effective, at a much quicker level, because you can train at 100% speed. But it's going back to, slow progression within the sport itself and within the art itself. You have people that, I've gotten I'm a 3-stripe blue belt now, and that's cool. They earned it. They worked hard for it.
I think it's one of the hardest belts to go through because it's such a long process. Right?
It is. It's a very long process.
Then you plateau, the blue belt plateau.
No. Well, I feel like I've plateaued at every belt.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
At every time, you get to a plateau where it almost feels like everyone else is getting better, but you're not.
Yeah, but then it clicks.
Yeah, and then you get back into it again. Yeah. You get into a rut and then you get out. Or maybe it's just all mental. And maybe you're just doing just fine.
Funny how that works, right?
No, it is.
Yeah.
But no, going back to the blue belt who likes to coach, or some other person who just likes to show off their part of it is they're taking pride in what they've learned.
Absolutely.
And they've unpacked and they've deciphered. But some do it better than others.
Some approach it better than others.
Yeah. I mean, that goes for the same thing for kind of any part of your life, in anything, in any kind of situation. Hey, some people handle things better than others.
Yeah. That makes sense.
I'd rather have someone who is a little more zealous about it than apathy.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. I mean, but I guess at the same time, it's like you said, they did deserve it, right? Jiu-jitsu's hard.
It's really hard.
It's fucking hard. If I had to dumb down anything, okay, playing a piano is hard, right? But then to be able to, jiu-jitsu is just a weird thing to go through. You're grabbing people, I know it's gotten more popularized because of the media and, all this stuff, and we're in that space. But then it's hard, man, especially say for women, right? Because you're grabbing on people, you're kind of Like, whoa, this is like a weird thing. You're close, right? Yeah. So my point is that when you say you're the white belts, you're a year in only, and you're getting quote unquote smashed, as people like to put it, get destroyed, and then you kind of get out of that and get more competent, then it's a little bit of an ego stroke. You know, it's kind of like, oh, cool. And then you got newer people coming in, so the cycle continues. Sure. Right. So the treadmill continues, I mean.
No, and at night, you talked about 100 people over at Syndicate at night class. That's a lot of people.
I'm not even over exaggerating.
No. It's that, I mean, the mat space is huge over there. It's
they have to get an octagon. You have to go in the octagon at times.
No, I'm saying that's a lot of people. And we had that, we have a huge showing, especially more so for no gi at Extreme Couture than gi, but at night, sometimes there's, 70-ish, some odd people, plus on the mats. And what we had before was just an all levels class.
Okay.
At night.
Sure.
And, there's like two of the hardest things that people do, when starting jiu-jitsu is the hardest thing they'll ever do is basically, come to terms and be like, I'm going to drive down there. I'm going to walk through the doors and sign up, and I'm going to go to my first class.
That's the hardest thing to do.
They walked through, they were thinking about it. They just didn't decide like an hour before.
Yeah.
They were thinking about it for a while.
Of course.
And especially you go back and you're talking about, a woman coming through the door and it's mostly dudes on the mat.
Yeah.
That's an intimidating environment.
Yeah.
And, that's got to be kind of off-putting in a way, but to walk through the door, sign a waiver, sign up, pay a membership, whatever it might be.
You don't know anyone.
Yeah, you don't know
let
anyone.
Alone you're a woman, right?
Yeah, and you got all these people that have the bonds and all the camaraderie that we talked about earlier.
That's established already.
No, all that's going on already. Whatever culture that, is already established or ongoing or developing, in that gym is already happening.
People have their tribes.
Yeah, they have their little groups within the groups.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, and then someone steps on the mat for the first time, and it's like it's how they're treated. And when we first had like a all levels class, like for 70 plus people, there are those people in the first 3 to 6 months, which is like the next hardest thing, because what those people knowingly do is that, okay, class starts at that time. I'm going to put my kit together. I'm going to put it in my car, and I'm going to drive down to this place very aware that I'm going to get my ass handed.
Yes.
For the first 3 to 6 months, I'm just going to get smashed. And that takes a lot of mental fortitude.
Yeah.
And that takes it takes a lot of ambition, and it takes a lot of perseverance. And then you have those people coming in off the street that don't know anything, or these people that have only been training for a month or two, really don't know anything.
Yes.
They can't even shrimp correctly. They can't bear crawl, sit out correctly.
The coordination that we were talking about.
No, they just, they don't even know what an underhook is, all these basic things that we, take for granted.
Yeah.
And then it's about making sure that, hey, you have the right culture to where you don't have that someone who's in month 5 be like, ooh, this guy just signed up. I'm going to just go absolutely smash him. So you have the people that are brand new showing up, and it's what kind of culture is it to where you stop people month 5, month 6, month 7, they've started to learn some stuff, and they're becoming effective.
By the way, before we go on, I think it's the lowest statistic. I think it's 0.1% that even get past white belt, which is amazing. So for you to talk about 3 to 6 months, let alone if they even get there. Because a month in, they're like, what the fuck? Because some people are just
but the bigger statistic is the people that never show up in the first place.
Oh. As a mic drop.
Yep. No, so the people that actually do show up, hey, applaud them for even just walking through the door into an intimidating, environment.
Especially at the gyms that we go to, because I think there's a much different dynamic, right? If you see a whole bunch of people in the gi, and then, say Drysdale. Sure. I know they have their MMA kind of thing too, but then when you walk in, it's people in gis mostly, right? Yeah. It's I don't want to say it's less intimidating, but it's more welcoming. because it's like a niche kind of thing. But then, so what I'm getting at is that, say if you walk into like Extreme Couture Syndicate, you got fighters, man. I mean, these guys are training for pro fights, and you got, you know, obviously the cauliflower ear. Not that, you know, the gi doesn't have any, but then it's like, you know, you have this thing. It's like the art of, what was it? What do they call it? The soft art or something like that.
Gentle art.
The gentle art, right? That's how it's like marketed.
Yes.
And then you feel that more of like walking in, it's a clean mat space. Everyone has their uniform on.
Yeah.
But then you walk into like a MMA gym, quote unquote, and it says Extreme Couture MMA or Syndicate MMA.
Sure.
I feel like it's much more intimidating, right? Because people are like going into fights. So I don't know. I just wanted to make that point.
No.
So it makes it a lot harder for someone to start to go there.
It's a very fair point.
Yeah.
And they don't know where to go, and maybe they haven't looked around and see what the culture is at other places. You know, you don't know their whole story, you know, or what's motivating them. I mean, we even have like, I don't know, like people that have shown up to like kids class because they were getting bullied.
Right.
You know,
I'm sure that's a big one.
Yeah, and it is. And, you know, no one wants to see, you know, their kid in that kind of situation. No one wants to be the kid in that kind of situation.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like it's growing up is hard enough as is.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it's, you know, whatever prompted them, whatever motivated them to walk through the door, you know, it should be welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
You know, more so for the adults when I say this, as long as they have the right attitude.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that.
No,
said more so for the adults.
If their motivation is to come in to be a tough guy, you know.
How often do you see that though? Like, I know that's like a general kind of, yeah, you know, since we are in kind of like a primitive sport,
Sure.
right? And people do have intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like, oh, they want to look like that cool guy, the tough guy.
Sure.
But how often, I mean, how quickly do they get humbled when they're, you know, you got all these experienced guys like you, and then all of a sudden, I think they get humbled fairly quickly, even before they get a mats, no? Or can
pretty quickly. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's, sometimes people come in and they think every round they roll is, you know, world championship finals match, you know, and it's just, you know, when I'm teaching at 6 a.m, you know, and, you know, that's not,
painful.
It's a little bit different vibe at 6 a.m. It's like, you know, for the most part, I'd say like 95% of the people there are starting their day. You know, there might be a couple people that are coming from work, you know, like, you know, some police officers getting off, you know, their overnight shift, or other people that work in hospitality, you know, on some sort of graveyard shift, you know, what have you. But I'd say 95% of the people, they're starting their day, and how they're not trying to start their day, I can probably pretty confidently tell you, is rolling with some guy who's still pretty new and just coming here to like take your head off because they think like we're giving out medals at the end of class, you know,
or they're trying to prove their coach something. Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily.
There's that too, or like, oh, I can hang, and
you're right. I want to impress you.
And you know, and when you have like, you know, a place of like good culture where you have like someone with a colored belt and they know this guy's newer, you know, and they're not trying to kind of like, you know, put it on them, you know, because it's like, yeah, the colored belt person's been doing that a lot longer. They earned that colored belt, you know, and, yeah, but I say, hey, do you know what? It's your opportunity to turn it up, and it's how you help train them, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I've told people, you know what I like more than, you know, wrist locking spazzy white belts?
Like locking them, hooking them?
Nothing.
Well, okay.
Nothing.
I like it.
Yeah. It's the best way to train somebody.
Interesting. What?
Yeah.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, you know, training with Fredson Paijao a long time ago. You know, he's just an absolute legend. You know, just
does he still have his gym, by the way?
Oh, he does.
Okay.
No, he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
He's always made me laugh. Really funny dude. But like incredible wrist locker. He's always looking for it, always hunting for it, you know, always some sort of threat. And at the very least, it makes you kind of hesitant on where you're going to put your hands.
Yeah.
You know? It gives you a moment of pause on like, hey, am I going to be safe here?
Yeah.
And I remember one time, I think I was a purple belt at the time, and I was passing his guard. I'm like passing Fredson's guard. You know, the 5th degree black belt. passing his guard. Like, yes. Yeah. I'm like in my head, just like, yes, you know,
got him.
And he wrist locked me on his pec. You know, it just, that was enough to where I was like putting pressure with like, you know, just kind of like, you know, where I was posting right there and he wrist locked me on his pec.
Wow.
And like, I didn't see it coming at all. Never thought it. I was just so stoked. I was passing his guard. And then I'm like, and I like tapped really quick. Then I hear, hey. Him laughing about it.
Because he
knew he got me and I had no clue it was coming, you know? And I was like, I was like, this is absolutely hilarious. I learned a lot from that, you know? And now it's like, I was kind of threatening wrist locks here and there, kind of used to keep people at bay, or if you have some spazzy white belt that's, you know, you're getting kneed in the face or something, you're letting them work and they're, you know, and then they're trying to like, you know, like really put it on you, you know, thinking that, hey, they're going to be like stronger and faster, you know, and then, just wrist lock them.
That wrist lock thing, it's also like a psychological thing, right? Like if you feint, like say in striking, if you feint, well, you're making them think. So if you have that threat of wrist locking, even if you don't get it, it's almost like, I gotta watch, like you said, where I place my hands. And that just changes the whole game. Absolutely. It changes everything. It changes your frames. It changes where you feel, right? Like it's a setup.
No, it's a setup. People a moment of pause.
Yes. Yes, it's hesitation.
Yes.
It's like, and hesitation will fuck up your game.
Yes.
That's funny. So you're 42.
Yes.
I'm 40. Okay.
You called yourself old earlier, so I took offense to that.
I mean,
you know, because that's me being a little bit older than you, you know, so I took some offense to that.
Theo, it is what it is. No, but you know, we train and all that. I joke around a lot with that because time goes by so fast and it's just like the paradox of life. It's like, I was just in high school yesterday. Yeah. Right. But my point is that how are you approaching training nowadays, man? Do you feel like you're still kind of, I mean, okay, well, this is probably a dumb question, but then personally for me, I do still feel at times when it's the right time that I'm 25 years old. I do. I feel like really good because we train, right?
Sure.
And we try to eat right, you know, and all that.
Yeah. And eating right is, you know, that's a culture you have for yourself too. You know, it's not something that you kind of flip over. Like I love fruit. I love vegetables. I grew up eating all that stuff. And
I know. I seen your Instagram.
Yeah. And it's like, it's part of my culture to eat like that. I feel good eating like that. Hey, does, you know, a greasy burger and fries taste good? Hell yeah, it tastes good, you know? But you know what? How do I feel after compared to something else? You know, do I want that greasy burger and fries every now and then? You better believe I do. Yeah. You know, I really want that, you know? It gives you that satisfaction.
Oh, immediate instant gratification.
You do that every once in a while. Cool.
Of course.
You know, great. You know, but for the most part, it's like, hey, you know, do I want my, you know, yogurt and fruit in the morning? Yeah. You know, with some coffee. Yeah, I'm good to go. That's a solid breakfast. I had some, you know, steel cut oats this morning with some mango on it. Feel great.
That's fascinating what people like eat. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
but you want like food that's not so manipulated. You know, you just want like good products that's, you know, easy on you. You process it well. It makes you feel good. You don't eat till you're full. Yeah. You know, you can sometimes, but
that's the rough one though, right?
But just don't do it every time.
Dude, I think that's probably why 60% of statistically, not trying to call anyone out, but 60% of people, that's just a general stat, but we're obese. We're an obese country. Everything has to be bigger in size.
Sure. Right. Because that's like, are you getting your money's worth or you're getting your value?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, are you making that
$2 2-liter sodas?
That $29 all you can eat menu. Did you get your $29 worth and some? You know, like then you feel like you did your, you know, you scored for yourself, you know, but did you, you know? So, you know, with, you know, at being 42, it's like, you know, eating right, having that culture so you can continue to do whatever you want to do for a longer period of time than the person who's not who doesn't have that food culture, who's not eating the way they should, because that has an impact. Whatever you put in your body has an input on what the
garbage in, garbage out.
Correct.
Yep.
Am I still evolving on how, my attitude is with my personal training, and going in there? Yeah, absolutely. It just, I'm getting better at saying no to certain things. It's like, are those fun days where, I roll with only black and brown belts? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And we have some really good, really competitive rolls, real technical things going on, and that's great. I love that, Are there days where it's just like, hey, and not to take away anything from some of our, even some of our white belts, it might be like a white belt, but they've wrestled for 16 years.
Sure. Competitively, Division 1.
No, and they can grapple.
And they can grapple, yeah.
They can really grapple.
Sure.
They never throw on a gi, but they can grapple.
God, they make me feel like a child.
Yeah.
I've been doing this shit for 6-7 years, and it's like, fuck.
No, and you have like some of our blue belt, like, it was, like, I remember, I'd already been at Extreme Couture for a little while, and it was one of the pro fighters who, he had been in the UFC, I think, as long as I've been training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he was on the mat with a blue belt on, and I looked and I was like, that's the biggest lie in here, man. Like, and you grapple with them, and like, extremely competent, extremely skilled. And he just like would rarely throw on the gi.
Yes.
And he's not a blue belt anymore, but at any rate, like, there's a bunch of guys that can like really put on, but like, but with guys that are better, they can be more of a chameleon to the situation. They look for some kind of technical role. They're just going hard, and I'm getting better at saying like, oh, if on those days where my shoulder isn't feeling the best, or my knee isn't feeling the best, or I'm just kind of banged up already, or I'm sore, like, do I really need to roll with the 260-pound guy? No, but before I would just be like, no, it's just part of the sport. I need to do it.
Yeah.
I need to say I can handle myself in any kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do I have that confidence? Sure.
Yeah.
But do I need to do it every day? No.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I'm going to continue to do this for a long, long time.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, because you are in a different position, right? You oversee, you kind of have, I wouldn't say have to, but then you have to, you kind of have to roll with kind of all your students. You know what I mean? It's almost, for me, I'm a student, and so are you. I get it.
Sure. But all of us are all students.
All of us, yeah, but at different levels. So in my level, my methodology is like, if I'm not feeling it, if I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, meaning I'm just tired,
sure,
I'll just play defense and work from there, right? Because it takes so much more explosiveness and stuff like that. That's my methodology.
Well, you gain experience, and it could be that like, so like the one guy I mentioned who, he's a white belt. He's wrestled for 16 years. Sure. He fights MMA. Mm-hmm. Great athlete. He's tapped me several times, and he's tapping me when I'm trying to see how I can kind of navigate, trying to, from like a half guard situation, going underneath and seeing, he's very tall, he's got good reach, he's lanky, like, hey, how can I navigate going underneath without him setting up this darce that he likes to do? Mm-hmm. And is there a way to do that? Or am I kind of like really trying to do something that's not really possible with that kind of situation?
Right.
I'm challenging myself, being like, hey, I'm going to continue to try to do this. Yeah, it keeps catching me. Yeah, he's getting there. I'm trying to fight that darce, but you know what? He's too good with that. He's very disciplined with that kind of choke. It's his favorite go-to, and I need to attack it a different way. And it's for my learning too.
Yeah. But with that, my understanding is that, or what I'm picking up from it is that you're not playing your A game. You're focusing on one or two things.
Sure.
That's why you're getting tapped, right?
Yeah, but you pick and choose like what you want to work on.
Yeah.
If what you want to work on is just tapping people out every day, every roll, every time, I think that you're not looking at the big picture.
Sure. Yeah. Or the smaller details.
Yeah. Or the details, or understanding why one thing's a mistake, or something else that is actually not a mistake by doing it a different way. you know? And it's so nuanced given like, you know, your body type versus theirs and vice versa, you know, and, or you're tired or they're tired or, you know, whatever it might be, or you're both fresh, you know, or, you know, you're pretty sweaty and so are they. So a little more, you know, like, can you kind of like beat the grips a little bit better? You know, it's so nuanced with how you do things, you know?
Yes.
And, you know, putting yourself into kind of deep waters, bad situations, like even on purpose or just being like, oh, do you know what? My goal today is just not to get crossfade, you know, by everyone. And I'm going to continue to put myself in this situation, but I'm just going to stay disciplined by, do you know what? I'm going to make sure my frames are in place so I'm not getting cross-faced. And do you know what? Like, yeah, you might have gotten smashed a little bit or kind of your guard passed or whatever, but if what you're working on was not like caring about, you know, if they're in a, you know, if it, let's say it was a tournament situation, them scoring points on you or what have you, and you went in there and you're like, oh, I didn't get cross-faced today. That was my goal. You know, good on you. You know, you did what you set out to do that day.
Yeah, you had intention.
Correct.
Right. What I'm hearing. And we often talk about that. And you being, I'm not surprised that you said that because you obviously have a lot of experience. When I talk to like, let's say people on my level, it's so hard to contain. And I'm sure sometimes for you, maybe, you know, to like not play your A game because it's so damn fun. Sure. Right. Like to roll. That's what people go there to roll for. But I do exactly know what you're saying about focusing on one thing so you could really hone in on it and then focus on another thing the next day. And then you could play your A game one day. Right. And all that. But again, we all have egos. And when I get to rolling, man, like it's not like I'm going Division I wrestling spazzy white belt style. No, I'm just going like.
But you want to get your money's worth.
Yeah, I want to move.
no, and that's cool. And if that's your motivation right now, you know, and that's what you're doing. But do you know what? You know, maybe I'll talk to you in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3, 5 years from now, and you might have different motivations at that point.
Different seasons, yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to maybe just be in a different mindset at that point. You know, you're just older, more mature. Maybe in a couple years when you're, even though you already called yourself old, you'll be my age. You know?
Hey, 2 years apart, bro. That's not it.
I just have to give you some shit.
I know. You know what's funny about that?
But you know, you have like different motivations.
Yeah,
you know, and you have a different mindset, and maybe you'll go back, and maybe you'll just more kind of like, you know, slingshot back to be like, you know, okay, yeah, now I just want to go in there. I'm not letting anyone tap me.
Right. Yeah.
You know, or I'm not going to let anyone get top position on me, you know, and, you know, whatever it might be. And I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to smash everyone.
And that could be a day-to-day basis. Like it doesn't have to be like 1 year, 2 years from now.
Of course not.
Sometimes I'd be just like we talked about, oh man, I'm in the shitty, I ate right prior. Yeah. I got great sleep. I had a great day. And then I was like, man, I'm going to get my 8 hours in and shut everyone out. Not that I'm thinking that way, but then I'm be like, I'm going to have a good day training session. I wake up just completely tired, bags under my eyes. Sure. And then I'm like, I don't want to do shit, but I want to make it to training.
Or one of our guys is, you know, really good D1 wrestler, you know, and if I get to a top position, not even a guard pass, if I just have a half guard and I keep his ass down.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
that's
you know
a win.
What? Yeah, that's a win. He's younger than me. I think he's younger than you too.
Oh God.
You know, but very skilled guy, you know, like he is absolutely trained since he was like, you know, a little kid wrestling not to be on his back. And if I can keep him there,
yes,
you know, I might not get that, you know, like, but I'm like, hey, you know, I did well. And then might be the next round or it's just, you know what, we're rolling with one of our kind of like, you know, older teenagers, quick, full of energy. His joints don't hurt. You know, like he doesn't know what a stressful day is yet.
His testosterone levels are like, to the max.
Yeah, through the roof. You know, like
his VO2 max is insane.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, hey, I'm not going to let him pass. You know. And then I might go back and be like, oh, there's that 260-pound guy. I don't want that guy on top of me.
Yeah.
You know, so how am I going to deal with that? You know, and not necessarily work on like, hey, I'm just going to omoplata everybody, you know, because, you know, that doesn't necessarily work, but you might have like a general sense of like, you know, I'm going to be on top in this situation. you know, or I'm not going to let them pass, or I'm not going to let them crossface, or I'm going to, you know what? I want to take everyone's back. You know, how am I going to get to the back, you know, and how am I going to do that?
The entry,
You know, how am I going to put neon belly on people?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. You know what?
And from different body sizes and skill levels.
Yeah, we were talking about this at LVAC. You know, it's a gym that we go to, and it's so funny. Like, okay, so this is kind of going into another avenue, but then we were talking about leg locks, right? And I recently just learned them, probably a year and a half, you know, 2 years. When I say recently, that's recent, I think, for the most part. So I'm fairly like very, very new to it. And my thinking was I started in the gi, right? That's how I was introduced to jiu-jitsu. It was gi heavy for the first time. And then I did it, the gym that I was going to. And we all know that you can't heel hook in gi.
Sure.
It's illegal. I think you could ankle lock, correct?
You can ankle lock. You can do different variations. You can toe hold.
Knee bar.
Calf slice, knee bar.
Right.
Aoki lock, things like that.
Yeah. So
as long as you're not reaping.
Right, exactly. So I always had this thought of, you know, since they have those rule sets for that, like the knee bar was a no-no. But guess who was there in San Diego? It was a Dean Lister.
Sure.
Dean Lister. You know what I mean? And the first time I saw heel hooks was from him on Instagram. And this was about 6 years ago. I was like, "Ooh, that's dangerous," right? I always have that thought, like, because you'd always say, "Be careful with heel hooks." Like, you'd always hear that because sometimes you don't feel it, and all of a sudden your ACL's torn.
Yes.
So Jerry started implementing it again when I started learning it, right? And I was so skeptical. I was like, I didn't want to learn it, to be honest with you. But bro, when I really put my like all into it, oh my goodness, I love the leg game.
No,
I love it.
You know, I think it was John Danner was talking about
50% of the body.
Correct.
That's right.
You know?
He got that from Dean Lister.
Oh, he did. That makes sense, you know? And it's like, why are you going to ignore that? You know? And, you know, you have a lot of leg entries and, you know, we talked about kind of like, giving people a moment of pause with like, you know, wrist locks and things like that, or give them hesitation. You know, you get underneath them and you're in a bad situation and you start to like threaten a leg lock, foot lock, whatever it might be. They're going to try and shift their weight pretty quickly. You know?
Yeah, they're going to try to spin out of it and they go into the break almost.
Oh, and if that puts you back into a guard situation, if that puts you back in a top situation from bottom, you know, whether it be some sort of sweep or just moving from top to bottom or whatever it might be, you know, you can use it for a wide variety of things, you know, like threatening submissions to gain a positional advancement, you know, or, you know, gaining positional advancement while you're getting it, you know, but it's kind of like you attack one to get the other, you know, and vice versa. But with leg locks, you know, it's like, in a competition situation, you're pretty much besides straight ankle lock, but like knee bars and slicers and things like that, you're not supposed to, and toe holds, you're not supposed to do them until brown belt and up. But I'm a big proponent of making sure everyone at a white belt level is already learning those. Because it's not that one day you're promoted to, you know, brown belt level, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to learn how to toe
exactly.
No, that's you need to have learned that all along. Now you have, you know, the ability to apply that in some sort of competition setting.
Yeah, I mean, same concept, right? First of all, before I get into like the what you were talking about, I got into the leg lock conversation because I think that's the remedy for fucking Division 1 and 2 wrestlers that go in there. It's like all of a sudden you get them in this heel hook position. It's like, oh, they're fucked. Well, there's no keeping me down. There's no getting up. Like you have their ankle. If you move, they could really feel it, right? Like they don't know. They completely have no idea what to do in that situation.
Sure. Yeah, but eventually they'll learn. Eventually they'll learn. And then they're going to be that's going to be a problem in a different way.
Absolutely.
Because they're already a problem, you know?
But for now, I will take complete advantage of that, my friend. Yeah. I like to just stroke my ego sometimes. Yeah. But like what you were saying, look, I didn't learn the underhook. Maybe this might sound ridiculous, but I didn't learn the underhook till I was a blue belt, which is gnarly because now looking back at it, everything's in hindsight, you know, 2020.
Sure.
I'm like, wait, what? Isn't that the first thing you should learn? You know what I mean? Like in white belt?
I'm sure you learned it, but as a matter of like, maybe you didn't understand its importance until then.
Yeah, I've heard about like get the underhook here, but then you really need someone to explain that to you. It's like, why have the underhook? Like, what do you mean?
Well, like
You know
even
what I mean?
today, I was showing a technique, with an underhook, and some of our younger guys were trying to use it and then push,
Yeah, right,
almost
right.
like use it like a bench press, or like one-sided chest press,
Yeah.
and then you have to explain to them like, no, you grab that and you swim,
Yep.
you don't push when you rotate and you swim, now it's going to be effective,
Yes.
So it's something where it's like even back when, at a white belt, I learned, someone showed me X guard, and that was like one of the things where I'm like, they showed an entry to X guard, and it was a little bit before I got my blue, so I've been training for a little while, and I was kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, I get to X guard. I'm like, and thinking in my head, I'm never going to use this.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
never going to use
fucking
this.
interesting,
It was complicated getting here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I'm not
It
gonna
looks
use
fancy and shit too.
No,
Like,
it looked really fancy. I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this? X guard.
X guard. Yeah.
Oh, the back leg needs to be over the front leg, like, no, and just like all the, and your, hook your feet and all that. And then it was like months later, I'm just in a live roll and I go right into an X guard. And I don't think I really like practice it since,
Yeah.
because I was just kind of like mentally in my head being like, it's not for me, and I just went into it. And I controlled the guy with that. I think I hit a real basic sweep with it just pretty quickly. And then it's like one of those things, you might like learn it, you might see it, but then it's like, time passes and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is.
Yeah. I mean, all it takes is just that, right? It's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I pulled it off and it looked cool. That's how I feel about
And then-
fucking heel hooks. Like, and not only that, I mentioned this on a podcast before. It's the transition to get into that heel hook. I love it, man. Like the one that you're talking about, X guard and single leg X and all that stuff, and then the sweeps that come up from it. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
This is a whole new aspect where people can't. Some people can't defend it. You know what I mean? It's like they don't know what to fucking do.
No, of course.
Yeah, even with like defending the leg locks, people freak the fuck out.
They do.
It's so interesting. For me, I just kind of like take it slow and wiggle my leg to see how much give I can get. And then I could roll over. Like I take it very, very slow. Straighten my leg,
I call it, it's like walking on eggshells. You make a mistake, you expose yourself, and it's most submissions where it's, going back to like culture of gyms and kind of like really kind of like bringing that back. Are you in a gym to where you have that trust or that culture that's built to where people are grabbing heel hooks and not cranking on them,
Oh, geez.
or having the discipline, the person applying the submission to be like, oh, the person I'm doing this to doesn't understand the situation they're in.
Yes.
Am I prepared also to let go if they start turning the wrong way?
Yeah.
So they're not cranking the heel hook onto themselves.
But wouldn't that be more part, not so much of a gym, but individualistically? Because you get that almost from every gym, even though like say Syndicate or Extreme enforces that, right? Like, hey, don't crank the heel hook. You'll get one or two guys that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then, what's the scariest thing too?
And then you address that.
Oh yeah. What's the scariest thing is that like when you're playing guard, right?
Yeah.
And then they just hop right into it. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like they have no, and then they're cranking the shit out of it. And look, maybe again, I'm new to it, but I have a sense of awareness to where I could straighten my leg and then be like, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And then kind of just play with it. I know a lot of people that are more experienced than me that actually freak the fuck out even more.
Yeah,
Right.
no, and it's all about like different parts of their game and like, what they're into. So, if I see someone like cranking heel hooks, especially on someone that I know doesn't, on the receiving end of that heel hook, doesn't understand what kind of danger they're in.
Yeah.
You can just see they're completely oblivious that, they're done.
Yeah.
they're stuck in that submission.
Oh, geez.
Their leg is isolated, it's wrapped up, their knee is immobilized, and the person's got good, palm to palm grip on, with the wrist right under the heel.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, yeah, it's done. And then I see the person starting to rotate on it, and I'm like, And I'll yell from across the mountain, like, let that go.
Yeah.
I'm like, and tell them, like, you can clearly see that they didn't understand.
Right.
This is a learning moment for you. Good. You got that. You set that up. You mobilized it on someone who doesn't know.
Let it go. Yep. Exactly.
Keep working on it, because now you get to work on it with people who know better.
Sure.
But yeah, it's also to the people like, I didn't tap.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
And I'm like, look, but that's one submission. It's like, yeah, that one doesn't hurt till you're in, and also like the progression of jiu-jitsu, and the better you get and your cleaner your technique, becomes and evolves to, the amount of leverage that you create in these techniques, versus a joint on someone's body, it's a lot of power.
Yes.
And yeah, you're training with other people who are trained to deal with it. And, you just quickly tap or whatever. They get their arm isolated. They, tap whenever they feel, uncomfortable at that point. But I don't think a lot of people like truly appreciate like how powerful these submissions.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And how they can really like, say someone like, oh yeah, my arm's extended, but it doesn't hurt yet. And then they crank it a little harder. It takes 8 pounds of pressure to break that elbow joint.
Yep.
And dislocate. So it's not a lot. It's just as long as you're applying the pressure in the correct direction.
Yeah. And dude, again, to that, I think now is a good time to get into the being old. That's why I sometimes feel like a little biatch, because I pick and choose my partners. Now,
that's you being mature.
I know.
It's not old. It's mature.
It's mature.
Yeah, see that?
But like I'm over exaggerating a little bit with that biatch thing. But it's a sense of awareness to where, look, I'm here to get my workout in, to move, to get better, obviously. But I'm not competing anytime soon. That's just my prerogative, right? That's like my goal. I'm here every day. I want to keep rolling every day for my mental sanity. And then I'll pick and choose my partners. But on the other side of that, again, I still have that kind of competitive nature playing us. We were talking about playing football, right? It's just innate in us. I think anyone that plays sports has that competitive fire more than others, that tenacity. And I but then I still have that in me. It's just kind of like, fuck, man, like I want to roll with that guy, but then I don't want to get injured. There's this hesitation that comes in because I'm more mature.
No, but and that's okay. It's better to pick and choose, and you're going in there for different things each day, like, hey, or you have a different goal each day. And, let's say you didn't sleep well last night, you have a lot on your mind, and do you know what you want to do? You want to go in there, break a sweat, get some training, some rounds in, and not think about whatever stressors, whatever anxiety, whatever kept you from not sleeping well, whatever made you physically, feel like that. You just want to get off your mind.
Yeah. Or you got an argument with like your wife, what I mean?
Sure,
like anything.
No, and you go in there because, you could go for a jog, you could go to LVAC and lift some weights, but doing what you can do during that time is actually think about whatever's actually bothering you. When you're involved in a round of like hand-to-hand combat with somebody who's trained, you're thinking about what's going on right then and there.
Yes.
And you're not thinking about whatever else might be bothering you
right
outside of that situation. So it gives you that kind of like, mental alleviation of whatever stressor. It might be, or external factors might be going on in your life, so maybe you're going in for that. Maybe, and that's just what you want to do that day, and you're going to pick and choose the rounds that are going to suffice that.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going in and be like, do you know what? Like, I'm going to roll with guys who are all bigger, because do you know what? I just want to I'm working this game where I'm rolling underneath, popping out the back door and taking their back or ending up on top of something. I'm just working on that.
Yes.
You might pick and choose all the bigger guys, or you might just be like, all those bigger guys are like, do you know what? That guy's hurt me before. Not because he's a bad guy. He's just a big dude.
He's just a big ass dude.
He's just a big dude. And do you know when he fell on me and fell right on my knee and that shit
still
hurt.
Traumatizing though.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? I like my knee was sore for like 5 days.
Yeah.
You know, not because he's a bad guy.
Of course.
You know, it's just because, do you know what? Like, it's just, and you're like, I don't want to deal with that right now. Or that happened, or it happened because, do you know what? In hindsight, I should have said no to that. And that's okay.
Or shit just happens.
So
right. Like it's just, sometimes it just happens that way. Yeah.
Yeah. When you start off a roll, what do? You know, slapping a pound, you know, and that's like a, mutual agreement that like, hey, we're going to have some good training.
Yes.
You know, and I have good intent. You have good intent. We're here for training. We're training at the same gym. You know, like, hey, it's kind of like it's just a kind of a, unwritten contract.
Absolutely. And that's a good way to put it.
And it's about respect, you know, and if someone violates that respect, that's a little bit different. Yeah. Turn it up.
Yes.
You know, turn it up on them. And do you know what? Like there's things that are worse than submissions, you know?
I think as you mature and get, like in your journey, you just notice, and again, I've mentioned this on the last podcast, that people will usually mirror your energy, right? Like even in sparring and stand-up sparring, if you're going hard, the other guy's going to go hard most likely.
Sure.
So personally for me, even going with, say someone just started, I'll dictate that pace, right? I won't like just go into him because he's less experienced or her or whatever. I'll dictate the pace to where, you're kind of saying, even with higher belts, man, you're letting them know with your body that it's like, hey, this is like the pace I want to go.
Sure. And the better people are, the more receptive they're going to be to that, but we've seen with like, okay, sometimes lower belts or people that are a lot newer to this or just think, or people that have been doing it a while and be like, oh, they're a blue belt and they're going to roll with the black belt. That means they just need to try harder.
Right.
And in their mind, try harder is just go harder.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna pass my guard with no grips, and you think, oh, you're just gonna like run like faster around my guard. It's like, no, that doesn't work. You know, or you're gonna try like juke me out in this situation. It's not gonna work.
It's so predictable.
Yeah, and sometimes with like people like that too, I'm like, hey, it's not because worried about like, oh, if I can beat them or not. If that doesn't mean anything to me. You know, it's a matter of like, sometimes I'm like, oh, am I going to catch a stray elbow or knee to my nose and get my nose broken because I didn't say no to this round, which, do you know what? Like, because this person has a different motivation than I do typically, you know, and it's okay for me to say,
yes,
like, just like you start off with a slap and a pound, it's a mutual agreement, you know, it's mutual. And if one person doesn't want to do it, then don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
If that one person's you, that's okay.
Yeah. And that's what I love about just in general, the jiu-jitsu culture. For the most part, it's universal, right? The slap and the pound. Yeah. And everyone knows that. Everyone like in the community knows that no matter what gym you go to. I guess it's a cultural thing now. It's a cultural vibe now to where it's like, hey, look, man. It's a mutual respect kind of thing. All right, Theo, any last words, man? We went an hour and 30 minutes deep, bro.
That was already an hour and 30
You
minutes.
Already know. See, this is what the podcast does, dude.
Oh, that's cool. It's just, thank you so much for having me in. It's great to chat with you.
Oh, dude.
And it's just like fun. It's just, it's like we're talking about something I love doing and you love doing and, and combat arts and, it's being part of a team. It's about culture. It's about respect. It's about all those like great qualities that kind of like build you, as a person that you can apply to anywhere in your life.
Yeah. And we also have like that connection outside of like the recording. We've been in the food and beverage industry. We have a lot of things to connect to being in that industry. Yeah. Like we know the ins and outs of the business, which we have a lot of similarities on. So I think it's like a good connection factor. But dude, I appreciate you for coming and thank you for your time, man.
No, thanks for the time.
Let's go.
Appreciate it, bro.